All right, Fern, CrossFit doesn't come with a manual, meaning, they don't tell us what equipment to buy. And I know back in the day, 2007, Rogue wasn't around, which, by the way, that's a pretty amazing story, Rogue Fitness.
Yeah, we need to get Bill and Katie on the show, by the way.
Is that the best and biggest business that's ever come? If not,
I mean, for sure within CrossFit, like that's not even a question.
is Rogue bigger than CrossFit?
It's got to be.
I mean, I suppose depending on what metric you're using, right? But whether
I mean,
it's fine,
I would imagine based on revenue, it's got to be. I think Rogue is in. I think Rogue is something to the tune of 500 million.
it's amazing. If you're listening to this podcast and you're just like, oh, this and that, it's like Bill Henniger started Rogue Fitness. You can find it online somewhere by building rings and a platform on his driveway.
So funny story. I was at the Two Brain Business Summit this past weekend, and I was sitting at a table, and a guy came up to me, and he was like, "You look familiar." He goes, "I'm pretty sure I judged you at the 2009 regionals out in the grass in Ohio." And I was like, "I was definitely there, dude." And that was like Rogue's first event, and the event was. It was circa 2009. It was nothing special. It was literally on a farm, but that was where they started. And to grow to what they've done, taking on no debt is like the most incredible story you're ever going to hear.
By the way, can we just say what a humble brag you just did? Oh, by the way, I'm a regional athlete.
I mean, you want me to brag? Okay. So I won't even humble brag. In 2012, I beat Ben Smith, and this is my coaches love it because they give me shit about this because I bring it up just to aggravate them. It actually means nothing. I did beat Ben Smith in an event in 2012 regionals.
So you were multi-year. If you said you went in 2009, did you
I
go
didn't.
10?
I did. I wasn't. I qualified 9 through 12. Got injured in 13, and then but one year I didn't compete because of the Navy. Like I literally physically could not make the event.
That begs the question, though. What happened? What happened to you?
Well, I mean, I ruptured my Achilles, but uh, I got old basically, and the field passed me up.
Nah, you're still pretty fit.
I'm fitter than you, which is
You
all that
are,
matters.
yeah. That's my gauge for pretty fit. Like if you could beat me, um, yeah. But Rogue Fitness. I'll throw on like a documentary on Netflix, like the Eddie Hall one, and it's like Rogue's the one putting out all the equipment. Bill shaking hands with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just to me, it's more like, look what you can do in this world. It's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, and they just became the sponsor for USAW, like officially.
Yeah, I mean they're the
They
go-to.
got their IWF certification, so
We had John Gilson on Monday. Do you remember those videos of Gilson and Henniger out
I watched
in?
them all.
Yeah, Austin was there back. Austin was an again faster athlete. I remember he came back to the box when he was coaching for me. Gives me like a bunch of T-shirts. I thought it was the coolest thing. As before, you're getting all these T-shirts thrown at you, and
Do you remember the video in the journal? I think it was the Again Faster team and was it Innovate or was it Rogue?
well, I don't know what video you're talking about, but they had the whole competition was again faster versus Rogue.
Was it Rogue? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
like out in the mountains somewhere.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You'll probably find them online. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're talking about Rogue Fitness because today's episode is going to be about what equipment you should buy for the box. Now, obviously, there's some that go without saying, right? You need some pull-up space, you need a barbell, you need some bumpers. Ideally, what else? A handful of kettlebells, wall ball, some rings, maybe a rower or two. You need the basics. But then we can kind of get into the nuancy stuff of all this little, secondary, auxiliary, supplementary equipment. And we're going to dive into it. We both, together, we've owned 6 gyms, 7 if you include my yoga studio, which all you had to do is buy mats and blocks. But not a whole, a couple of those little smelly carpets too. So let's dive into these. But is there any equipment that you think, hey, this is a mandatory piece that someone wouldn't think of?
If I was to go back and do it again, I would have far more dumbbells than what I started with.
Now, so let's talk about dumbbells first then. This wasn't on our list because I do believe boxes should have dumbbells for scaling. Obviously, it comes up in the open these days. How would you lay out dumbbells for the box? Not like where would you put them, but someone's, either starting a new box or they have a current box with no dumbbells. What advice would you give them?
There would be large argument in my mind that you would get dumbbells before barbells.
That's a pretty brash statement.
Yeah, but again, I have the good fortune of hindsight at this point. But hear me out on this one. I'm not saying you shouldn't get barbells, but if you're limited on a budget, A, they're cheaper, just right out of the gate. B, they take up less space. So if you have a smaller space, less footprint per athlete. And then C, I can do everything with a dumbbell that I can do with a barbell. You don't lose any capacity with the exception of loading. So maybe not everything, but like you don't have to get as heavy with dumbbells as you do with the barbell to get the same stimulus.
Right. I mean, if you're moving more than a 70-pound dumbbell, I don't know what movement aside
You're
from
fit.
aside
you're
from deadlifts.
fit. Yeah, you're fit. So yeah, I mean, and that way you can kind of really baby step people into it. It's far less intimidating.
So
if you're a new coach, it's probably a better option to be very frank.
okay, I'm so let me counter all three of your statements. Cheaper. Is it cheaper? So let's say a barbell, let's put it at 200. I know that maybe that's a little low. A set of, typically for dumbbells, you're paying about $1 a pound for the rubber head ones, right?
$2 a pound, probably.
All right. So 250s, you're talking what, $200? Or are you saying?
Well, here, let's look it up.
Okay. Well, while you're looking up the cost of that, sure, it might be cheaper for a set, but then the argument would be, how many sets do I need to replicate what you could do with a barbell and bumpers?
I mean, as many barbells as you were going to buy, right? So,
well, my point is, for me with a barbell, I can load it to empty all the way up to 315 if I want. Where with the dumbbell, it's 35s, it's 50s.
Yeah, but what you're not factoring in there is, I need more than just a barbell, right? So a barbell is not the only cost involved there.
Right,
I need the weights to go with it. So like, let's say I'm going to have for instance, a 135-pound barbell, which would be equivalent of a 60, probably a pair of 50s, realistically, 50s to 65-pound dumbbells. That 135-pound barbell, and I'm talking about like the barbell with the weights, is probably $500.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Is side topic. What do you think is the ratio of dumbbell weight to barbell weight? In other words, Fran's 95 pounds. You go 45s, you go 50s.
No, it's definitely not straight across. It's not a 1-to-1. It's probably something to the tune of 75%, like ish.
Yeah, you ever do Fran with dumbbells at 50s, it will wreck your life.
It's soul crushing.
So much harder. Say the same thing about being cheaper, I would say about space. It's relative, right? So surely a barbell and 245s take up a little more space than one set of dumbbells. But I guess my question with dumbbells is, and again, maybe the broader question would be, what would you get for a box then? Because, in my garage, for example, we have a set of 25s, 35s, and 50s. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, that does do the trick for just about everything I need to do if I'm substituting a barbell. If the workout calls for dumbbells, once in a while I'll need a 70 that I don't have. If it's a heavy snatch or something.
So the basics, right? So like you need barbells, you need bumpers. I don't think you need to go crazy on weight. You need enough to probably make like one barbell get to 400 pounds. But outside of that, like you probably just want enough weight to get some heavier metcons. If you go back to our previous episode about heavy days, you can get people strong without really, really loading people. And if you're new, it's a new box. Maybe you don't need to be going super heavy anyway. But A safe bet as far as like what you should get is figure out the equipment you're going to get, and we'll go through some items, but probably half of the equipment based on the anticipated class size. So if you're anticipating running classes of 10, you need 5 of everything.
That's exactly what I did for my last box. It was like, I want classes of 16 and I had 8 of everything, because you're always going to have a mix of gender, a mix of scaling, and you can always find a smart way of altering.
You can stagger start, you can alternate. Yeah, you can do a bunch of different stuff.
Okay, so let's dive into some more of the, like I said, auxiliary type equipment.
Okay.
Jerk blocks. This
No.
was so that's just a straight up no. This was huge probably 7 years ago. 7 years ago, everyone was online building them from wood. I mean, we had multiple members build them for us because they just wanted to. They were heavy. They took up a shit ton of space. You know, if you were short like me, trying to adjust the height after somebody else, you pinch your fingers in the blocks. What other reasons should you not have jerk blocks at your facility?
God, let me list the ways. So this is funny because I started a YouTube channel like 3 years ago, and it's called Jerk Block Talk, and it is literally soup to nuts of things going on in affiliate, from admin to leadership to coaching. So if you want, go check it out. There's probably 140 episodes on there. I named it Jerk Block Talk because the jerk blocks, they're not now, oddly enough, right? So they're not now. I have 4, maybe 5 sets of jerk blocks in our gym. They get used every single day.
That's a lot.
Well, but we have a full-time weightlifting coach and like 50 weightlifters at our gym, right? So that we have a dedicated space for weightlifters, and that is generally in somebody's programming every day. And they squat off of there. They do overhead work off of there. But for the longest time, it was just they were just stands for people to put their shaker bottles on or drink. Everybody would lean on them and drink coffee. Like, they never got used. So, but anyway, so that's the first thing, is they get little to no use in the average gym, and they're real estate monsters. Like, they take up an incredible square footage in the gym that cannot be used for anything else when they're there. And they're not easy to move.
Yeah, they're, and they've made some better ones that roll, that adjust, like the metal ones that are pins. But I think the biggest takeaway that you said is they're real estate monsters. And the truth is, most people don't need to use them.
No, like my weightlifters do, because they're slinging big weights. Like, they don't need to re-rack it. Like, that's not the point, but like, most people don't need it. And even the ones that are newer now with the pins and all that stuff, they're still like 214 pounds a piece. Like, you're not like moving them by yourself efficiently, you know?
So, and I think for a lot of if you're thinking, what equipment should I buy? Would you agree that the biggest reference you should use is, do you have enough to use it in class?
Yes. And then everything else should be maybe singles, right? So think, what are the typical things you're going to use in a classroom? A barbell, some bumper plates, a wall ball, dumbbells, kettlebells. I mean, you can do an incredible amount of programming with just those things.
Yeah. I mean, do you need, rowers, maybe some ropes, etc.? And we'll dive into some of those. But right, if in other words, if you only have 1 or 2, it's got to be, super specific, but it needs to be something you still are willing to educate your members on, or else it's going to sit in the corner. And jerk blocks become those. Like, if you're listening, think about the bulk of your members. Are they going to spend time using jerk blocks? And evaluate, could that money be spent better? And really, do you want it taking up 10 square feet? By the time you separate them, and
probably, probably.
Yeah.
So some of that other stuff, like rowers and bikes, what I would tell most people is 1. So if you're starting off, get 1, because you're going to want those for scaling options for people that can't run or do something like that. But they're probably not going to be in your programming for quite some time, until you have the demand or you have the space to add additional ones.
So let's move on. What's next on our list?
We could go boxes.
So what's your opinion on boxes these days? When I started, I bought a set of the metal ones. It was like maybe Elite FTS, whatever magazine I was using back then before
Probably.
Rogue. and
All Dave Tate stuff.
yeah, they stacked on top of each other. People were destroying their shins because
I think.
they had hair all around the edges.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
that's very sanitary. Did did you did you have a MRSA outbreak at your gym too?
luckily we never did, but I've seen that at other boxes, primarily from the ropes.
From the ropes, yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So I think you should have some boxes in there, but again, that's one of those things that you can do some makeshift things for at the beginning. You can stack plates, you can jump over barbells, you can get the jumping in there, um,
Would you
in other ways.
so when once rogue came about and the boxes grew, I transitioned to all wooden boxes, and then eventually they made the three-sided box, and I had a pain in the ass to move. And then at one point at Albany CrossFit, it was probably the sixth or seventh person that really destroyed their shin. Like, go to the hospital, get they have that like V scar on their ankle or their shin bone. And I was like, I'm getting rid of all boxes and going soft boxes.
So that's ideal. However, that's probably not financially feasible for most people. I think those things are $220 a whack or something like that.
They're
So,
more expensive now. They make the three-sided ones, so it's a
so they
little
make the
bit
three-sided ones, or they're like stackable. They're not three-sided anymore, I don't think, but you can add
right.
layers to them. So no, so that's ideal, right? At the end of the day, like you would want to probably end up with those just to prevent injury. But again, they're cost prohibitive, meaning like not everybody can afford to drop $250 for one box.
But then it begs the question: cost or safety?
You can be safe without having to spend that money on the front end. Be careful with the volume of box jumps that you program. Don't let people rebound until they're at a pretty high level. Encourage people to do step ups. Like there's other ways to navigate that.
Careful what you program box jumps with. I was at a box, so they did it was such a high volume of front squats and box jumps, and like 3 people on the same day destroyed their legs, and it's like, well, no wonder. You're just
it's pretty redundant. Yeah, which is what you need to do, but like pay attention to your programming and what the result of the programming is.
What about foam rollers? What role do those play at the box?
I think they're great. We have like the big gun racks at our gym of the foam rollers. So I think I've got 18 of them. So they're great. We use them most days after a class. But if you're starting a gym, maybe just have people get their own foam roller. Have 1 or 2 so that you can teach people how to use it, and then have them invest the $35 to get their own until you can afford to get like a full set.
Yeah, I mean, we had that as well. I think we had built kind of the gun rack thing before they were selling them out of wood, and they're useful. Most boxes have way more foam rollers than they need. That's one thing I've seen. Like, you'll order the dozen or the 12 pack, and maybe 1 or 2 gets used at the same time.
We only do it now because when we do the cool down at the end of the class, like we tell everybody to get one. So like everybody has their own.
So again, goes back to what we said earlier: have enough for class or don't have any at all. I think there's a handful of pieces of equipment that if you're doing CrossFit, if you're committed, if this is your hobby and passion, you should have. Obviously, a good pair of shoes, whatever company you support. A foam roller at home would be great. If not, these day and age, everybody's got either a hypervolt or they make their own out of a jigsaw. But you have a piece of kind of mobility and recovery equipment. And then also, on to the next one, jump rope.
This is one, it's incredibly convenient if you have sets. So we have like the full sets from RX Gear. So the set of 20 that's like color coded and all that stuff.
That hangs on the wall. You put the handle on the wall type of thing. Yep.
Yep. But most gyms that I go to, the jump rope contraption, we'll call it, that carries all the jump ropes should just be thrown in the trash. So that's one for me. It's either spend the money or don't. Like that's one that for me, that's a very like do it or don't, but don't go in the middle because it's a nightmare. People time in knots. They don't know where to hang them. You can't tell what size the ropes are. I think a full set from RX Gear is probably, I think it's like $400, but it's 20 ropes and you're probably never going to need 20 ropes in a class because there's going to be some portion of your members that have their own, probably close to 50% that have their own rope.
Yeah, and you have to be aware our box has the same one, and I'm kind of right in the middle between the small and the medium. So neither rope really works for me. So I think it's important. That's the one thing I tell people pretty early on. Like, hey, if you're going to be involved in this, go to Rogue, buy yourself a rope, and have it in your bag. Because
Yeah, it's definitely a piece of gear where I'm like, get your own, but we have them to facilitate a class.
yeah, we over the years, I spent hundreds of dollars on ropes. And like you said, if you're not going to organize them, they get tangled, they get broken, they get taken home. Yeah,
Yeah,
either don't do it or spend the money and do it right.
yeah. That's one that I'm not on the fence on at all. I'm like, unless you're completely prepared to spend the $400 to $500, then don't do it. Tell
Well,
people to get their ropes.
what's one you are on the fence on that you're like, there's a debate about whether or not to do it?
Um, Probably the strongman bags that Rogue makes, like the
What
D balls, like the heavy D balls.
the ones like they used at the games, the cheese curd ones that are soft.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your philosophy on those?
I'm a fan of odd objects, right? It's a different capacity.
So we can lump a lot of things into this strongman category, be it
Yeah.
bags, stones, axles.
I think the bags, if you're going to go strongman, like that's probably your best bet. You know, their Rogue makes them fairly cheap. Sand is super cheap. You know,
Yeah.
you can get bags of sand for $2,
Or just go to the beach.
or just go to the beach and steal. The There's a lot of value there, and you can load them in a plethora of weights, right? So I think we have everything from 30. I think we have 30, 60, 80, 100, 150. And so now that we program them fairly regularly, like I know we need more 60s, I know we need a couple more 80s, and I need something between 100 and 150.
And you have enough that you're using them in class.
I We have 15.
Oh wow. So you now again, the challenge with a lot of these equipment from the bags to dumbbells is it's harder to scale because if somebody, for example, 150 is heavy for me. I can move it, but if it's in a Metcon, it's going to be slow, but 100's light.
Yep.
But there's nothing in between. So that's the
Well,
challenge.
well, there is, right? So those I don't have to fill the 150 to 150.
But
I can
it's not as simple, I should say, as adjusting a barbell.
No, not at all. Like you're gonna have to do a little bit of work now. And if you're gonna start using those in class, what you do is you start putting those into like some of the cash out work. Where if I only have 5, I start slowly teaching people how to use them as I build up the supply to put it in a class. That way, when I do have all of them, it's not everybody's first time touching it.
That's a really good point. For a lot of this equipment where we're saying, hey, 1 or 2, just to have there, be it for scaling, we'll talk about a couple other things here. We're not saying don't program it, but maybe you can't accommodate an entire class. But now, you have a 20-person class and, your sandbags are what they are. Hey guys, get in groups of 3 and accumulate 150, over the shoulders or whatever it is. So you're giving them that dose, you're acclimating them to this piece of equipment. And I do agree with you. We had stones, those things hurt your body. They, chafe up your arms and they bust up the floors.
And
These
somebody can drop one on their foot.
yeah, I've seen that. And the bags are basically accomplishing the same thing, and it's far more real world. You're going to pick up something that moves a little bit, that has some give. It's a great functional piece of equipment. And like you said, depending on where you live, it can be super cheap if you just head over to the beach, grab some sand, fill them up. Or like you said, Home Depot's got bags of sand.
Super cheap. But I do love them, and it's another way to add some variance in there, and it's just a different capacity. Like moving a 150-pound sandbag is not at all like moving a 150-pound barbell.
No, significantly harder.
All right, what do you think about this? Is one that we put it probably towards the end because I think this is the biggest one. What about the GHD?
I think you need to have a GHD at your box. I think it's I was at I forget what it was. Coach Glassman was on tour doing these talks, and somebody asked him, it's like 2008, about the GHD, and he said, we can't afford one for the box. And Coach Glassman goes, I'm going to buy one for your box, just right there on the spot. Like, that's the kind of guy he is, and he believes in it. And then I wanted to raise my hand and be like, we can't afford one either. But I mean, talking about John Gilson earlier, I bought 6 at one point from Again Faster. They made, not all of their equipment was great, but their GHDs were fine. They were sturdy, and they're still the ones I enjoy. But I think, like we said about jerk blocks, they take up a ton of real estate, but they're vital to developing an athlete, to helping an athlete develop midline stabilization, get stronger. I think every box should have at least one. Ideally, I would say, depending on the size of your box, ideally two. Program it into some of the cash out type stuff or auxiliary work, but be coaching that. Be coaching that. We had I'll let you go ahead. You say what you were gonna say.
No, so like if you're wondering like how many you should get, if you are under 100 members, one. So I would tell you. So here's a real easy, like you need one for every 100 members.
You think
And some people are gonna laugh at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are gonna laugh at that, but like the reality is you really don't. Like even if you have a pretty big gym, the vast majority of your athletes probably don't need to be doing that in a workout. They could do another variation like a weighted sit-up or something like that. And even in those scenarios where you do have it, there's creative ways to get people on the GHD. Have them start at different movements. Stagger start the class. Just have them alternate rounds. One round you're going to do GHD sit-up. The next round you're going to do weighted sit-ups. And everybody gets a little bit of dose, and it's first come, first serve. But I've rarely we have two, and we have over 200 members and probably in our main facility. And then probably 150 of those are CrossFitters. And I've never had an issue with two.
And we have one at our box that I coach at, and they probably have nearly 200 members. And, no one really touches it. They don't program, so say the Filthy 50s come up, which has back extensions, I think, or forget if it's hip or back. But either way, we don't really program those in. Maybe we'll see Supermans, or, if I'm in the class and someone else is in the class that knows how to use it, you're right. We'll stagger. And by the time one of us gets there, we'll just make sure we're out of the way. But the importance of it, I have one in my garage. I mean, I think you can't devalue the importance of that. But like I said earlier, if you have one, you need to know how to use it well. If you don't remember what we taught you at your level 1, go research, because out of anything I've seen over the years, the GHD has put out the most cases of rhabdo that I've been involved in.
I would say for me, my experience is probably 50-50 between GHD and pull-ups.
Yeah. I've a box down the road that I'm friends with, they did Nicole recently. 3 members got rhabdo.
I got it a couple of years ago during the Tosh mashup.
From Nicole?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean
severe. Like I could not do a pull-up for north of 60 days, and I didn't extend my arm for 3 weeks.
That's one of those examples of Coach Glassman came up with a great workout, not realizing how fit people would become.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, I did. I think Justin Virgil and I were 1 and 2. I think we were like a couple pull-ups apart, but it was almost 200 pull-ups.
Yeah,
I had over 180 pull-ups. I think it was in like right at 190.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a great runner, and you don't really need to be to do that workout, because I would just probably get sets of 30 or 40 5 times, and that's too many pull-ups.
Yeah, way too many. And then you run with your arm bent. It's just like it's terrible.
So
what about weights? Bumper weights.
Interesting topic, because I was talking about Gilson, and actually in the book, he says this to me at my level 1, and I write about it. He was like, hey, there's never a need for 35s.
35-pound weights?
Yeah, bumper plates.
I disagree.
This is back in 2007, right?
Okay.
And I said, why? He's like, look at CrossFit. RX is always, at the time, 95, 65. And you can always adjust with 10s beyond that. And metal 10s are cheaper than bumper 35s, right? So you can always slap a metal 10 on there. Now, and even to this day, we have some 35s at the box. When was the last time you warmed up with 115 for any movement?
I do a lot now because I scale the shit out of some workouts.
But I mean, for the most part, it's like, with the exception of snatches for me, my warm up typically goes like barbell 135.
That's fair. So like, well, you're probably right. Like financially, like if you've got enough change plates, you probably don't need 35s
But I'm
for it.
just saying it's rare that even if I had 35s that I would go just because it's always been my life 45s, right? So
Yeah,
it'd be rare that I would say, all right, let's go 115 for a warm up set.
yeah, that's fair.
Snatches, I'll go 95, 115. That just takes me a little longer to warm up. But clean, any type of squat. Overhead, I'll go 95, then 135.
Yeah, that's fair. What kind of bumper plates, if you were going to start your box over right now, would you buy?
So I would go either the high temps or the cheaper comp plates. So when I opened my third box, like I said, we wanted 16-person classes. We bought, maybe I would have tweaked it a tiny bit. We did, and I did buy 35s in all fairness, because I bought 8 full sets of the, color coded comp plates.
Okay.
And then I bought 8 sets of 5s and 2.5s and change. So basically there were 8 sets. So if it was a heavy day, partner up, take your rack, so
Got
you
it.
would get one barbell. I had every set of bumpers on one wheelie thing. So I had 8 of those kind of trade.
You could get, yeah, 3 something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here's the trick with that. It's like, not to be, stereotypical about women, but typically the men would be moving more so they can grab some of the weight off of the women's tree if they needed it.
That's fair. That's
And
fair.
and 90% of the time no one's going over 315 unless it was deadlift or somebody had a really solid squat. But
Yeah.
again, the comp plates are more expensive. Those things lasted. You have to take care of them. The screws come loose in the middle, so you have to be aware of that. But they were the Rogue comp plates, and it was pretty. That last box I opened,
They're pretty.
yeah, we spent money on everything.
My recommendation is high temp or nothing. Like, I mean, if you get to the point where you're like, I want some comp plates, then do it. But the high temps last forever. I mean, you can put so many drops on those things. Now, some people are like, hey, the ring comes out in the middle. And this is one that will probably be controversial, right? So talking about equipment. And so I've owned a box for more than 10 years. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Good collars save barbells and plates.
Good collar. So what collar would you recommend? Because I'll agree with you, and I'll add to that after you tell me the answer. What collar would you recommend?
So Rogue bought OSO or OSO. I don't even know how you say that, but
Yeah.
So Rogues, I bought 30 pair of Rogues, the nice ones. I want to say they're like $60.
Metal looking.
They're metal and they clamp down. And you can get them in colors and stuff like that. But here's what I'll tell you. The plates don't move on the barbell.
But let me ask you this, because this is an issue we've had at the box. The plates don't move, but they slowly grind out the middle of the bumper.
So they solved that.
Okay, they fixed it?
Yeah, well, they fixed it, right? And so some of them have, well, yeah, so now they're different now. Some of the old ones did used to do that, but they're edged off so that they don't do that. But they also made them where the inside you can buy like rubber lining for them, so it's rubber on rubber.
That's cool. Yeah. So it was basically grinding out that the middle ring, and then they would fall out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so that doesn't happen anymore. So we bought those, and the ones that it's really important for, it's not so important for the 45s or even the 25s and the 35s.
10s and 15s.
It keeps the 10s and 15s in place so that they're not bending, because it's not the collars, it's they're dropping because they're loose and the plate bends.
Right.
That's what bends that ring off of there. And ever since we bought those, we're going to get probably years off of added to our bumper plates because of that.
So it's one of those things. Spend a little more on the collars, and it actually saves you money long term on the bumpers. But
now, I will tell you from an affiliate owner, that is a hard one to bite off on. You're like, listen, I could just put these spring collars on here and do that, but then you have to listen to basically, some percentage of the dudes and all the females complain about not being strong enough to pinch them together and get them off the plates.
And personally, there are workouts where I go for the spring collars, like if we're going to be adjusting weight in the workout, because they do move faster. I can get it on and off faster. But
you're not that fit that you need to worry about that.
that may be true. All right, let's burn through a couple more. Similar to the GHD, what are your thoughts on the reverse hyper?
You don't need it. I mean, if you are just looking to spend money, you got literally nothing else to do, then get one. It's a great rehab tool and it's really cool. But again, real estate monster, you don't need more than one. And virtually nobody's going to use it anyway. Like I've got one and it gets very little use.
When I've had one, and I had one in my garage in New York, and then I had one at the box, I used it every day. However, like you said, I was probably the only one using it.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, it can get used, and it's a really good tool for some people. Most people are afraid of it. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think that's probably an underlying thing we should say for all of these. Only buy equipment that as a coach you feel comfortable coaching and you're going to teach your members how to use. Otherwise, it's going to, be the coffee table.
Yeah, so my answer is no. I just don't really think you need one. Again, that's one of those ones if you're just like, hey, I've got money to spend and I got everything else I need. I'm like, okay, get a reverse hyper. And that probably wouldn't even be top of the list of like what we would call novelty items that I would buy.
Right. What about a ski erg?
I love them. I've got 10, but
you got 10 ski ergs at your box? How many rowers do you have?
So we have 15 rowers, 11 bikes, and 10 ski ergs.
What bikes do you use?
I have a mix. I probably have I want to say I've got 7 or 8 assault bikes and then 3 or 4 of the Echo bikes.
Which do you like better?
The Echo bike is going to last a lot longer. It's a better bike.
It's going to last longer and it's quiet. That's why
it is quieter. It's definitely quieter. I don't know if the calories are exactly 1-to-1, but who cares?
Well, for me, it's like I'll be coaching a class and someone's warming up or cooling down on the bike and it's drowning me out.
That's fair.
The box just ordered 3 Echo bikes. So I'm super excited to have those.
But for most people, right? For most people, that's a really good tool. So this one and probably the Concept 2 bike, like just get one. It's a really good option for scaling, particularly for people who are doing some rehab, because the assault bike style bikes are, if I have somebody that has an arm injury or something like that, and all I want them to do is pedal, the assault bike is kind of annoying. So I might want to go with just a regular bike.
Yeah. And I think, one point we haven't made is, while these aren't the people we should buy equipment for, everybody has a box that, a couple people might compete at local competitions even, and you'll see this stuff. So it's nice for those members. Granted, we're not, buying this stuff for the douchey athletes that think they need to do their own thing. I'm saying, you're women that go do the local competition and there's going to be a skier. You want them to have the opportunity to practice before they get there.
Yeah, like a perfect example would be somebody for a skier who's got some sort of lower limb or lower extremity injury where like flexion at the knee or flexion or extension at the knee or ankle causes them pain or discomfort. Row, you can put them on the ski erg and now they can participate in the monostructural portion of the workout.
Absolutely. All right, last one, fraction plates.
No,
not at all.
This is for practical reasons, not because I don't think they have value. They will never find their home. Like they will always get lost. They'll always end up in the wrong spot. And does somebody really need to add 1 pound? Like if you're just going to add 1 pound, add 5. I mean, come on. Like
I agree with that in theory, but it is nice sometimes when you're like, your members that have been coming in for 3 years, hey, throw those half-pound plates on and hit a BR.
I think we need to talk about your warm-up. That's what I think we need to
Well, it's certainly a novelty item, and I agree with you. Unless you have a very dedicated home for those, like a hook on the wall or a little spot with the rest of your plates.
We had some for years. I mean, probably almost 10 years. I just got rid of them. And of course, nobody uses them forever. The day I get rid of them, somebody's like, hey man, where's the fractional plates? And I was like, get out. Get out.
I always tell people just throw another set of collars on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't, maybe if you have kids, if you're running kids classes, stuff like that, but get a training bar, I just don't know that a 2 pound weight jump is really ever in order
Yeah.
outside of like a lifting competition. But even then, you can't go more than 0.5 kilos.
Bang for your buck. They're relatively inexpensive, but I hear you. I agree with that. Well, that was really only a jumping off point, if you will. There's tons of equipment, but what we tried to do is touch on those outliers, those things you're not sure of. So maybe whether you're starting a new box and listening, you have a garage gym, you train at home, or you're contemplating some new equipment, we gave you some sound advice there from two very experienced affiliate owners.
And then if you're trying to think about how you should buy equipment, create an equipment budget. So I was at Two Brain Business Summit this past weekend, and John Briggs, who runs Insight Tax, if you need a good accountant, like go look those guys up. He is writing Profit First for micro gyms. So Michael Michalowicz wrote Profit First. If you have not read Profit First, I highly recommend it to any box owner. But John Briggs is writing this one specific where they made some changes. And one of the things they put in that percentage breakdown is equipment. So we've been operating like this for probably almost 3 years, where you can slide that percentage around, but like there is an allocated percentage every month of dollars that are for maintenance or equipment. So just get in the habit. If it's $50 a month, just start putting $50 a month in an account labeled equipment. And that way, when you do need that rower, that money's there and you don't have to freak out about it. Like it's just there, and it gets you in the habit of reinvesting, but not having to break the bank to do so. It's like, I'm going to take this penny and I'm going to put it over here. And then all of a sudden I have 50 cents and I'm like, now I can spend that 50 cents.
Yeah. And if you're a box owner or any type of small business owner and you've not read Profit First, you need to read that.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, my buddy John Prescott owns Neuse River CrossFit in North Carolina. And what he does every year, January, along with everyone's membership, they pay $50. And it's an equipment tax. Every member pays it, and it goes directly towards new equipment for the year.
I'm curious if he gets a lot of beef for that.
According to him, and maybe I'll have him on the show. According to him, no. He's the box owner that Logan Aldridge from Will Wad and a bunch of the other guys go to. But it's just work. It's one of those things where if your members don't know any different, that's just part of what they do. And,
that's true.
And I think you have to just show it. Like, hey, notice all this new equipment. You can't, just be pocketing $50 a member. You have to be putting it back towards the new equipment every year, and he does.
I mean, depending on the size of your gym, like that's a pretty significant buy.
Oh yeah, he gets a few, $5+ grand every year by doing that.
That's cool. I like that.
Cool.
I might try to implement that.
There you go. All right, everybody's learning today.
There you go.
All right. Well, we hope that helped, guys. We got some great interviews coming up for you and some great projects that Fern and I are working on. So we're excited to share those with you in the near future. Once again, Fern, great chatting with you.
Yep. See you, bud.